On this 3rd day of March, this is Morning Express, and it's time for us to look at the state of the nation. This is a session within the week where we put our pulse on the nation and, well, see which way the heart is beating and whether we are getting healthier or not in several issues. I'll go straight to introducing the panel this morning, and I'll start with my extreme left, where we have the MP for Kiharu, Honorable Irungu Kang'ata. Thank you and for joining us, and karibu sana.
Thank you.
Next, we have Noah Akala, who is the Deputy Director for Campaigns, ODM.
Thank you for having me.
Javas Bigambo, who is a governance expert.
Thank you so much.
And a political analyst. We had also the newspaper review, Dismas Mokua. Karibuni sana. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning. Let's start off with one of the hot subjects that has hit Kenya recently, and it seems like it's from one controversy and from one scandal to another. We have the Youth Fund now. And let me start with Honorable Irungu Kang'ata, and just looking at what is happening, maybe your comments and your sentiments regarding what is coming to the surface.
Let me first say that I happen to be a member of Parliamentary Investment Committee, which is probing that scandal, and say indeed some money has been lost, and I find the chairman and the former CEO culpable to the issues, because one, they made some withdrawals which were irregular. They changed the signatories to the key account, and I belong to the school of opinion that they should be prosecuted.
Okay. Javas?
Well, I think it's disappointing that at this point in time, revelations are emerging nearly every month about matters graft. It is clear to us, as it is to every observer, that it is evident corruption is a challenge to this administration. It also proves that the pieces of legislation that we have, aimed at combating graft, are not either fully being executed, or the actors are thoroughly compromised, and that it is becoming a way of life for Kenyans. People are getting used to revelations of graft, and the fact that in the end, no prosecution has netted any critical or senior government official. And it is time for us to start rethinking how we want to combat graft in this country. Because from the time, in fact, prior to independence, we had the first law against corruption when we were still a British protectorate. And in successive years and successive regimes, we've had institutions and pieces of legislation that have been put in place to fight corruption. We even have our very own Constitution of Kenya 2010 with various provisions that cater for good governance. But it seems this country slowly but swiftly is going to the dogs. Governance is becoming a challenge.
Okay. Noah Akala, looking at where we are today, I mean, one scandal after another. Where did the rain start hitting us?
The moment that Uhuru Kenyatta was elected the President of the Republic of Kenya.
But even before Uhuru Kenyatta, we still had issues with, as much as we'd like to blame him for these scandals that we're seeing, but we have seen corruption, we have Anglo-leasing that was before. Yes, sir.
And you'll be interested to know that the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Finance who facilitated Anglo-leasing payments was none other than the person who is serving as president now. But let me express my views on this issue of the Youth Fund. For me, it is the most gravest of sins, because it goes against the very core constituency that the Jubilee Coalition claimed to have gotten them to power, the youth. And this is a promise broken. It's the last promise that remained standing from the 2013 election pledges that the Jubilee Coalition made to the people of Kenya. Reading about the details and the manner in which signatories were changed, as Mheshimiwa alluded to, and the manner in which the board chairman casually answered these questions when he was being probed by members of PIC. When he was being asked whether he acted unilaterally, he said yes. When he was asked whether he disregarded the board's approval, he said yes. When he said that, when challenged as to whether he authorized the acting CEO to make these irregular withdrawals, he said yes. It's a man who clearly feels as though there are no consequences to his actions. And it's greatly disappointing to see the manner in which Kenya has sunk into the stench of corruption.
All right. I see Irungu Kang'ata.
Yes, well, the reason why I feel quite unhappy with some of the comments that have been given here is that insinuation that the government is facilitating corruption. Uhuru Kenyatta's government has nothing to do with that corruption. In fact, the institutions that have been set out by the government happen to be the ones which are helping to counter corruption. To me, it is an issue of more exposure, more catching of the thief, as opposed to more increment of the actual theft. And for instance, you can look at the peak. We do not have an obligation per se to elect, let's say for instance, an ODM chair, but out of our own volition as a government, we decided to give those chairs to respect parliamentary democracies when it comes to watchdog committees. So to that extent, the point is, so have you? Government has taken a policy of zero tolerance to corruption. Those institutions, which include PIC and PAC, have helped to a certain extent to unravel various corruption scandals in Kenya. So we should not be saying Uhuru government has become corrupt. No. This is the cleanest government in my own opinion. Uhuru Kenyatta himself came to parliament. He gave us a list. He said, these are the people I'm suspecting they are corrupt. And they stepped down immediately after he came to parliament. So to me, when it comes to corruption, it is only that we are now becoming more able to capture thieves as opposed to more.
Dismas, listening to Irungu Kang'ata, you get the feeling, and also to Noah Akala. Noah Akala will say, and many maybe will probably agree with him, that it is the government that has got us where we are today, the current sitting government. But you also have the other side that maybe it is more revelation, maybe it is more issues coming up to the surface, maybe there's more action, and that's why there's more that we can read about it. Your comments on that?
Well, you know, when you listen to Irungu's comments as well as Akala, they've got specific audiences that are addressing. So that's why Akala would be very happy to say that corruption is now domiciled in the Uhuru Kenyatta administration. But my view is that since independence, we've had three issues which have affected the nation. That's impunity, mediocrity, and corruption. And it seems that every successive leadership comes and embraces that with his own team. And one would be happy today, because when you look at the auditor's reports, the kind of revelations that you see, they're just shocking and amazing. And earlier on, he was saying that we need to be sure that we are very serious prosecutors who understand their job and who are able to deliver, and very serious investigations. And I think it's up to now Irungu to ensure that those people who are supposed to do prosecutions and investigations are given more resources. But more important, a gentleman by the name Mr. Mika Shesreim said that the only time corruption in Kenya is going to end is that when you have one MCA, one MP, one governor, one CS, and a PS in committee. When you see them in that uniform worn by prisoners, that's when corruption will stop. But what happens today is, for instance, if Honorable Irungu decides to misuse the CDF and he buys himself an helicopter and a very big car. He says he's only one Prado, but if he buys another two Prados, he'll probably now qualify to be a governor. If you steal money today and you go to your local church, probably on a normal basis, if you're a normal Kenyan, you go to church, you're given the back seat. But the moment you steal resources, you'll be given a front seat right in the middle, and you are going to be celebrated.
So in short, you're saying as much as there is the governance side of it, there's also a societal issue that we have.
It's a societal issue because all of us inherently are actually very corrupt. Very corrupt. A number of us who claim that the government today is very corrupt, they've just missed the opportunity to be in that place to steal.
Okay, Noah, let me come to you. And of course, you say that, and I'm sure you'd want to stand with the fact that you say that since Uhuru Kenyatta took over, that's when now corruption became just wanton corruption, as we would call it. Yes. But really, we cannot say that as Kenyans, we're not corrupt. It's not ingrained. Because right from huge amounts like we're seeing now in the dailies to very small amounts, corruption is corruption.
That's true. But first, let me just refute something that Mheshimiwa here put forward. He tried to allude that the establishment of the Public Investments Committee and Public Accounts Committee is by the good graces of the executive. This is not so. These two watchdog committees were established under the Constitution of Kenya 2010, the Standing Orders of Parliament. So it's not out of the good graces of an individual
the chairmanship.
that is
the
established.
And the chairmanship.
It's good practice in Commonwealth countries that the heads of these two committees are members of the opposition. That is how you keep the executive in check. Now, moving on to the point that you said, I think to some extent there is a cultural issue. which is why a gentleman like Suleiman Shabal could stand in front of a public rally and say that come 2017 to Taiba, and people would clap. And just this past weekend, another member of parliament from the Rift Valley did the same, and people would applaud. So this, our leaders are a reflection of who we are as a people. And increasingly we're beginning to hear this rhetoric about theft being sanitized and being casually treated as though it is the right thing to do. And I do agree with Mokua here, who states that those leaders who appear to be stealing the most are put on a podium and applauded. But it also tells you how money has been tied to our body politic. And without money, it's very difficult for leaders to get into positions of leadership. So when we as a people begin to expect more from our leaders in terms of bribes and handouts, then we put them in positions where they're driven more to look for these resources using underhand means.
Okay, Javas, it looks like a vicious circle when we look at our situation in Kenya, because I was speaking to one politician and he was saying we are under so much pressure from the electorate. The minute we get into office, there is bursary, there is, I need to take care of this, that, the other. So it kind of goes round. Is it our expectation as the electorate to the leaders that maybe causes them to have to want to now maybe embezzle, and also the fact that we accept them after they have done that?
I think up to now, it is now an irrefutable tradition in our polemics to have all these, unsanitized kind of approaches to leadership, governance, and such praxis. And the fabric, in fact, the membrane of integrity in this country, when it comes to leadership, is increasingly becoming thinner and wearing out. And we must not blame it merely on the electorate, because it is from the electorate that leaders are chosen or leaders emerge. And leaders themselves also advance these retrogressive practices that pull back a country from progress. While I appreciate that it is the people themselves, it is the electorate who in a way fund these practices, they ask for handouts and kitu kidogo, etc. It is the leaders too who come out also to give all this. And whenever leaders who have refused to give bribes have emerged from among us, people have not considered them. But those leaders have presented themselves to the electorate. And one wonders, is it a problem of the leadership, the electorate, or maybe the mechanisms that we have in place? Everything is to blame. But while that is the true state of affairs, question is, how do we stop all this? And I think time must come when we must turn a blind eye to seniority, to favoritism because of ethnic orientation or somebody's ethnic extraction, because it has seemed that those who are closer to the powers for the longest time, in a way the system seems to be lenient, and even investigations seem to favor them in a way. Take, for example, let's face it, there are a number of cabinet secretaries who were alleged to be involved in matters graft, and they were requested to step aside in the name of investigations. Then came the NYS scandal, and you wonder, for instance, why is it that the case of former cabinet secretary Eguru was expedited by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission for clearance, and all the other cases we've not seen them come to conclusion. It tells you that the problem too is with the system. Now, we may even give the EACC teeth sufficient or even surpassing those of a crocodile. Question is there that intention to bite?
Is there the goodwill? Let me come to you, Honorable Irungu Kang'ata. You have been chosen by the people of Kiharu to represent them in Parliament and to come up with laws that govern this country. When it comes to corruption, what is the solution? You've stood strong and said that it has nothing to do with the current government, yet at the end of the day, there have to be laws and things that ensure this corruption ends. Because if we accept that it's just a cultural thing, then we resign and say, let it be.
Well, in my own opinion, the government has done its best towards curtailing corruption. The problem, in my own opinion, lies with judiciary. Why do I say so?